Welcome back. It's been way too long. Ranger Rick here with a brand new episode of North Country. Yes, PhilGTV decided to feature me in this episode of North Country. I'm glad to be part of it. Let's get right into it. Hello and welcome back to episode 3 of North Country. Big thank you to Ranger Rick for coming out and being on the episode. If you don't know who Ranger Rick is, I'll be sure to explain later in the episode as there's an actual tie to him being in this episode. Alright, so I know it hasn't been a long time since the last episode. Surprisingly, I'm actually having an episode come out within the month, unlike the last few episodes that have been like 2 to 3 months. Anyway, but there has been a lot that's changed, so let's just get right into it. One of the first things that I decided to work on in this episode is going to be Grizzly Theater. I know that I talked about it in episode 1, talking about how I want to have a Country Bear Musical or Country Bear Jamboree inspired kind of theater show, and then with the characters being inspired by the bears from Bee Swarm, as I used to have the Bee Swarm bears inside my ride that was called Splash Coast. Didn't really fit the Amalfi Coast theming, and I have a big project planned for Amalfi Coast on how I'm going to be making that a little bit more different in the future, but that's probably like the summer project, and maybe I'll make a video on it, maybe I won't, we'll see, but that's something to look forward to. This facade is going to be inspired by Grizzly Hall from Disneyland and Disney World. I'll try to post up a picture on the screen. It's not an exact replica, but it's just kind of what I could fit and kind of make sense for North Country. Because the actual facade of the building is supposed to be a little bit smaller than the actual building itself, I had to use a few tricks like using diagonal walls and then covering them with trees to make it look like it's a little bit smaller than it actually is. Especially with playing with scale here in North Country, everything that's kind of towards the front of North Country, like before you start leading into like where Kodiak Peak is, it can be a little bit bigger, but as you get closer to Kodiak Peak, essentially using forced perspective, I do have to make things a lot smaller. I know that the Bear Rapids building was kind of like a little bit of a broke the rule, but that's why I had to put a bunch of trees to kind of break up that perspective, so you can't really see the Bear Rapids building and Kodiak Peak at the same time. So essentially it's like as you go further into North Country, it's like everything's kind of goes from like being tall to slowly getting smaller. You'll see that later in the episode. Some other work I did also was working on the rock work and then like the landscaping for the mountain range. I decided to add some more layers and some more depth and essentially creating the mountains look a little bit more 3D than flat. I'm going to be continuing to do that, sometimes probably off camera too, as I don't want to always record it. It gets kind of boring. In this episode, I was able to finish one of the main attractions for North Country, being the North Country Exploration Trail. You'll see me start working on it in parts of the episode. So that Firewatch station or the Firewatch Tower is part of the North Country Exploration Trail that has the 2 bridges. There's also a cave in there. It's essentially going to be similar to the Redwood Creek Exploration Trail at Disneyland California Adventure, just a little bit different, really more focused on the actual nature and looking around, less of the obstacles like they have at Disneyland. It's going to be very relaxing, a lot of trees, and then there's also going to be like hidden secrets, deer, moose, and bear that you'll get to see. The next thing that you do see me working on is the ranger station, because you can't have a national park without having a ranger station, and then this one is pretty close to me in my heart. So for those who don't know, I actually started YouTube when I was around like 12. Don't tell YouTube. I know that you're supposed to be 13 or older, but I was able to make my account, and the first video that I posted was me pretending to be a character I made up that was called Ranger Rick. I recorded this all on my iPod Touch, but it was like a bird jumping around in the snow, and then it ate something, and then it like died, and it was like essentially the Ranger Rick was like, don't litter because you'll make animals die. That was like my episode 1 of the Ranger Rick series, and then I kind of showed it to some of my friends when I was at that age and family, and they really liked it. So I decided to kind of run with it, and I made more Ranger Rick episodes. I just wanted to kind of pay homage to Ranger Rick, as that's been a pretty huge part of my life for a long time. Actually, a lot of people used to call me Ranger Rick when I was younger, and then once I started getting known for other things, YouTube, besides Ranger Rick, you know, that kind of fell off. But to the people who know, if you're watching, comment below or just share your favorite Ranger Rick moment if you remember. Some of the Ranger Rick videos I've made unlisted as they're kind of embarrassing now looking looking back. Not my greatest quality videos, like looking back in cinematography wise, but some of them were funny. So I kept the really funny ones up. The other ones that were kind of like cringe, I'm like, I can't watch them. Maybe some other people can watch them and laugh. That was why I decided to put Ranger Rick in the episode. Technically, the last episode of Ranger Rick premiered in 2017 as it was a goodbye episode. It was supposed to be the last time that you see Ranger Rick, but he's back. At least for North Country, we'll see. Next, you saw me working on some of the Grizzly Theater, where I finally added the characters to the Grizzly Theater. Again, it's supposed to be very similar to Country Bear Jamboree or Country Bear Musical. So it's just going to be seating for you to watch a show. There's going to be the left side or the right side that you can enter or exit through. Once the show's over, you just leave and it kind of goes in a circle. Most of it's not going to be accessible to NPCs, just the entrance. I just decided it'd be kind of weird to have the NPCs walking through and they probably litter and leave their trash everywhere, so I didn't want to deal with that. Going back to the Ranger Rick Station. Ranger Rick Station is going to be actually the lounge and the like secret friend hideout area in North Country. The idea was at first to have the lounge staircase leading up to the top of Grizzly Theater, but then I realized I don't really have a lot of space and it was kind of awkward with how steep the staircase was going from the Ranger Rick Station to the Grizzly Theater, plus I'd have to make the trees really tall or like make really big rocks, and I was like, Ranger Rick Station is not going to be accessible to NPCs like most of North Country is at this point, but it is going to be accessible to friends. I'm going to make it this very like relaxing cabin lounge feeling that's just for friends. I'm gonna probably include some stuff that's like Ranger Rick inspired from my Ranger Rick series. And then I also do kind of hop between a few of like the projects within this episode. A lot of it is focused on the North Country Exploration Trail. Like I mentioned, it's very forested, beautiful. I think you saw me putting down some of like the deer. As a disclosure, most of the animals in this series I have not made myself. I used from the gallery, so like fake builder here. I mean, you can call me a fake builder or not, I don't really care. Those animals are very intricate to make. I was looking at some of them, they're like 200 pieces. Most of the models and characters that I made for other stuff like the Bayou, they were at most 80 pieces, and that's like really pushing it. I can do cartoonish characters, I cannot do realistic, and I didn't really want to do too cartoony stuff. I might make my own Smokey Bear in the next episode. Oh, spoiler! As I do also want to incorporate Smokey Bear into this area of the park, and I feel like it would be just perfectly fitting. Again, I know I haven't received like a million comments, and I know that this has maybe been my series that low-key flopped, but I really love it. I've really been getting into the North Country spirit. When I first started building it, I was really into it. Then it just kind of became overwhelming. I have no idea what I'm going to be building, but once I kind of got into the rhythm of North Country, the more excited I am. Like I'm already working on episode 4 as I'm recording this. I have some huge plans that I'm not going to spoil in this episode that I think you guys are going to really like, or at least I think is really cool. I think that this series might go past 4 episodes. We'll see. It might be a 5 episode kind of like Galactic Outpost. And I know the 5th episode of Galactic Outpost was technically just like a tour, not so much building. We'll see. This is definitely a very intricate, very detailed project that I think might need 5 episodes and then a tour video towards the end. Speaking of tour videos, guys, I have yet to start on the Mermaid Adventure or the Pirates of the Mediterranean tour. I do have the actual footage itself recorded. I just need to compile it into a video, and I swear it's gonna come, guys. All right, some of the stuff that I've kind of missed. I've added deer to the North Country Exploration Trail. One of the biggest thing with the Exploration Trail was to not make it look very copy and paste. I wanted to have a lot of different elements in the actual Exploration Trail, including different types of trees. I also had to be very mindful, different perspectives and different spots of where you are in the Exploration Trail, and from the Firewatch, from the actual Bear Rapids ride, where the trees aren't covering stuff like Kodiak Peak or Half Dome or even El Capitan. So I had to be very mindful with where I placed the trees. I also wanted to place different animals too. The bear that I did not build, and then later there's also a moose. I did create the antlers for the moose, so guys, I mean, I'm a huge builder here. This has been a lot of fun working on different areas of North Country Exploration Trail, as I had like flowers and rocks, and then some places you could see some of the creeks, some places you couldn't. There was also some rock work that you may have saw too. I'm trying to essentially make this place into a valley, like I mentioned in the first episode, inspired by Yosemite Valley. valley. The rock work is probably like the least exciting part, but it really does tie the entire project together. If it wasn't for the rock work creating a berm around the entire North Country, it would just feel, I don't know, you'd just be looking out into the default Theme Park Tycoon 2 land where it's just like grass everywhere. Sometimes people will load up parks next to me. They just completely ruin the immersion, especially when it's like a huge spaghetti park. Especially with this land being right on the edge of the park, like it's literally in the corner of the map. I've kind of reached the limit of what I can build in North Country. I do have other lands planned for later that are also going to be kind of towards the edge too, but this is probably one of the biggest expansions I've done in a while. It's almost double the size of Salento Coast. As I was building, I had to make sure that the lighting for this entire part of the park was lit up pretty well. I did want some of it to be pretty natural. I'm not going for really bright colors and like bright lights on stuff, just enough to like light things up like Kodiak Peak, El Capitan, Half Dome, having the street lights along the pathway, having like the small path lights on the North Country Exploration Trail. Just enough ambient lighting, and then on the buildings, obviously I added some lanterns to make a little bit warmer glow, because obviously when you go to like a national park, it's not lit up with stadium lighting. Like this isn't anything like Futureland with like the neon lights or stuff like Amalfi where it's like every single building is lit up and it looks like it's, you know, a floating city on the water. I had to be mindful with the lights, but also make it bright enough that when you do visit North Country towards the evening, that you can actually still see what's going on. And as like I continue to work on the land in general, later I'm going to go through and like really focus in on the lighting, but for right now I just wanted to light up certain parts. As I finished the exploration trail, I added some geysers that were shooting out water. I thought that that'd be really cool, similar to Grizzly River Rapids and Disney's California Adventure, where they have geysers. I'll put up some videos because I got a lot of great footage from Disney's California Adventure when I visited, and I do have a video for those who don't know visiting Disneyland at Christmas time. That was my first time ever visiting Disneyland. It was a lot of fun. I'm planning on probably going again someday in the future. It was very costly. I'd have to fly to California, pay for the stay, and then pay for the actual park tickets too. So it's not like here in Florida where I have an annual pass. This episode was a lot of fun. I mean, I made huge progress. Looking back on the end of episode 2, which again was a lot of progress in itself. Within this episode, I was able to get Grizzly Theater done. I was able to add the Ranger Rick Station. I finished the entirety of the North Country Exploration Trail. I added more mountains and a lot more landscaping to the entire land. I also was able to build the reflection lake for Kodiak Peak. Initially, I didn't really have an idea of what I wanted to put in front of Kodiak Peak, but I also didn't want it to be that you as like the visitor could get really close to it, because then I feel like the illusion breaks, as I wanted it to seem like it was further away, and that's why I made those really small looking trees in front of it. As the trees get closer to the view of the actual visitor, they get bigger and taller, creating an illusion that it's like way further, tricking your eyes to think that this is a really tall mountain right here. I don't know, forced perspective, like putting it into 2 words, forced perspective. I hope that I got enough talking in on this episode. I know it's a little bit longer of an episode. I think one of my longest episodes ever. I hope that I don't have to go through and add more talking in. I feel like I yapped enough in this episode. I really hope that you guys enjoyed the little Ranger Rick feature there in the beginning. Feel free to comment below what you thought. Feel free to leave feedback on what I built and what you'd like to see me build. North Country still isn't finished, but I do have some pretty big plans for episode 4, something that I'm really excited to share with you guys. Be sure to watch the next episode. Thank you again for all the support that you guys are providing. I know that Theme Park Tycoon 2 isn't everyone's thing, but it's been so exciting to see the people that come out and support. Again, thank you so much. PhilGTV here. See you on the next episode.